Hello and welcome, members of the Wandaverse, to episode 19 or 20, depending on how you're counting them, whether you count the secret special episode from last week or not. I'm Hannabeth Gardener.
And I'm producer Nick.
And let's get into it. So it's been another very busy week in the Wandaverse. And by that I mean Patti LuPone has caused absolute chaos online.
She's decided to basically send you all into a bit of a head spin, really.
But yeah, so we're going to dive straight into the news. We will be discussing Children's Crusade this week, one of the best comics of the past 20 years or so. But before we get into that, obviously we've got the news. I'm going to jump straight into the Patti LuPone stuff because I know you guys want to talk about it. So Patti LuPone went on Main and said, Jack Schaefer doesn't make second seasons. There won't be a second season of Agatha all along. And she was actually offered a second season of WandaVision and said no. Now, the people have been screaming, crying, throwing up about that, and I see why. But I wanna start by saying I don't think that this necessarily is as bad a news as people think it is. Because, number one, Agatha all along kind of was WandaVision season 2. I just think it means that we won't be getting it won't be called Agatha all along season 2. But Catherine Hahn seems pretty certain that she'll return. I think that, bearing in mind what Aubrey Plaza's recently been through, maybe we won't be seeing her as Death anytime soon. But I think that what we'll see is probably a Wiccan show that has Agatha in as a heavy main character. In the same way that that Agatha all along was very much the spiritual successor to WandaVision. That's what I think we'll see. And I don't think Patti was ever going to be in any second season of WandaVision, Agatha all along, because they very much treated her death very seriously, and I don't think they would reverse that decision, to be honest.
No, I think from my standpoint, all the signs have been pointing towards like an Agatha all along season 2 in a form, and basically all Patti LuPone has said is that basically it's not Agatha all along season 2. It's not. She doesn't do second seasons. But that doesn't necessarily mean that she's not continuing on the story. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. It's just like, okay, what if we see WandaVision as like a part 1 of this? We see Agatha all along as like a part 2 of this kind of arc, as it were, this mini arc in the grand MCU thing. You can see Vision Quest as like a side arc, and maybe hopefully Wonder Man as another kind of side plot. It's all interlinked. So I think maybe Wiccan is very, very popular. So I think it will be a Wiccan show, if I'm being honest. I think
it's very much going to divide the fandom that Agatha all along specifically has created. I think if Jack Schaefer clearly isn't willing to, I think that they probably were pushing for an Agatha all along season 2, because the audience that has developed around Agatha all along is very much a new audience for Marvel, and it's a gaggle of lesbians.
Yes.
And other gay people, which is fine. Like, the gays that already were in the know, like me, knew that WandaVision was like the move. Wanda is the icon for sad gays. But like, I think that it touched the lesbian community, and the Agatha Rio ship was more popular than Marvel ever could have really conceived of it being. And obviously they didn't write as much of it into the show as I think they would have done had they known what the audience was going to be into, you know? And so I think that there is that struggle now of how they write this Wiccan show, because I think Agatha would have been very decentered, maybe just as like a mentor character, whereas now I think that the way it will be written, I think the studio at least will be pushing for more inclusion of Agatha in her full capacity as a co-main character, rather than maybe it be called Agatha and Wiccan or something like that. I think that they probably did ask her to make a season 2. I mean, they obviously offered her one of WandaVision. Don't know how that would have gone. Maybe they would have. I don't know how they would have done that. I really don't. Maybe she would have been yanked from Multiverse of Madness. But Vision was very much dead. Maybe Vision Quest would have been kind of shoehorned into that. We got the news that the cinematographer for Shogun is going to be the cinematography on Vision Quest, which is great. It means it's going to be visually stunning.
Yeah, Shogun looks good. Shogun looks great.
I'm excited for that. I looked up the director or showrunner for Vision Quest, and I haven't really seen any of his projects. I know he's working on the Magic the Gathering series that's about to come out, but I hadn't...
Oh, that's going to be perfectly normal
I don't know a lot about Magic the Gathering.
I mean, just the Magic the Gathering is a whole thing. So yeah, that's going to be perfectly normal and not strange at all to see any kind of.
Could you elaborate on that for those of us who aren't up on the Magic the Gathering lore?
No, it's so the Magic Gathering has basically been around since the 80s.
Christopher Ross is the cinematographer and Terry Matlas is the director.
Magic the Gathering has been around for a long time, and it's got a fan base which, like, it is deeply entrenched in kind of. And I don't want to say there's lore in Magic the Gathering as much as there is just a very like fervent fan base. There's a reason why this card game has been going on for nearly 40 odd years. There are cards out there that basically put Pokemon card values to shame.
I'd seen this. So, I watched Niche Tea and I knew about some of the card values. But anyway, I'm not familiar with any of his work. I have seen Shogun, so I know how gorgeous that show looked. And we know that Vision Quest starts filming this year. So I'm very interested to see where that will be going. Obviously, we will update you on any news that comes out as we go along. We've also had a little merch drop on the Disney Store this week. We have a brand new Scarlet Witch t-shirt. I have ordered it, so we will see how it fits. It looks kind of cropped on the website, but it did not say cropped on the in the description. So if it is cropped, I'm going to be pissed because I don't like cropped shirts. It's available right now on the British Disney Store and the European one, but not the American one. At the moment, we have started to see the House of M Funko Pops shipping out. People are saying it's better in person. It's still not available in the UK, so I cannot give my professional opinion on that. But I have heard from close friends of mine, shout out friend of the pod, Benny, that it is better in person than it seems. Also, the Act and Cut Scarlet Witch figures from Sega are starting to ship. They look stunning. I've seen Dale's, and I am so jealous. I want mine to ship immediately because I think she is absolutely gorgeous and the kind of comic book figure we've been looking for. Can we now please get a figure, any statue, figure, Funko of Wanda in her current comic look? I do not understand why we're being denied this. Also, the first list of Marvel Rivals Funkos came out and Wanda is not included. They did pick the driest characters. It's the driest list I've ever seen. Do we need another Iron Man Funko? They all look the same. We don't. Who was asking? Nobody. People in my comments were so pressed that I was like, I want a Wanda. And I don't understand why. Her look is so good and interesting. And I don't think that the Iron Man outfit is in any way interesting. Yeah, I'm going to come for Iron Man on this. I have decided to come for him. So yeah, we've had merch releasing. We've got new merch coming. It's nice to see that Wanda's still having a presence on Disney Store. They seem to know she sells. So hopefully we'll continue to see more merch this year. Again, I'm just going to make another plea. Can we please get her in her current comic outfit? Like, Russell did not die for this. He did not create the iconic look that we have for us to have no merch of it. It is so beyond disappointing to not have a single figure of it. Like, come on now. We're on like the 4th run of Wanda in this outfit and we still don't have a figure of it. Like,
have you got sales figures for how the run's doing compared to other Scarlet Witch runs?
We don't.
Or any kind of idea?
It's a hot topic of debate online.
It's a debate.
The sales are, whether or not they're good is a hotly topic, and I am not touching it. I am not touching the debate that's going on. All I will say is buy the comic. Whether you like the topic of the current run or not, we should all buy the comics. We should support them. First off, because we want comic books not to be a dying art. The art is gorgeous. Russell's covers, and the variants. I love how many variant covers we're getting. Especially, I can't wait to get the Saturday morning cartoon variant of the upcoming one. Wanda and Pietro look so cute on there. Peach is putting out another cover for Wanda. It's so gorgeous. I don't care if you don't like the storyline. if you're a Wanda fan, you should still be buying the comics, because it's just like, you know how long we've waited for this, for her to have an ongoing comic run. Come on now, guys. Like, come on now. Let's get these sales. Whether or not you think they're good, like, let's keep them going. That's all I can say on the matter. I would love to get Steve Orlando, who is the current writer, on the pod. This is an open invitation for you, Steve, if you want to come on and talk about it. But he has all of his stuff private, so I can't get to him.
If anybody here is listening knows how to get hold of Steve, please let us know.
Yeah, we'd love to talk to him. I've got questions. But what I will say is the current art is gorgeous. It's lovely. Love that for it. But yeah, that's where we're at. Unfortunately,
we're at with news.
Well, that's where we're at with news.
I did a walk into Forbidden Planet the other day, and she's appeared in a Iron Man comic.
Yeah, it's
nice.
nice.
Any background on that one?
I've read it.
Yeah.
My physical copy still hasn't arrived yet.
Yeah.
She looks great. It's a nice little fun romp between her and Tony. It's nice to see that friendship continue. Obviously, it was very strong in the Force Works in the 90s, but due to the way things went in the MCU, we kind of saw a fall off of that friendship. So it's nice to see it back in the forefront. I would love to see Wanda and Carol interacting again, if anybody wants to make that happen, since they're supposed to be biffles and we haven't seen her and Carol interact properly, despite being in an Avengers run together for forever.
That's a good segue, I think, into because there is a little bit of Carol and Wanda.
There is in the Children's Crusade.
Wanda, I think, what do you call it?
Okay.
She's not particularly pleased, is she, Carol, with Wanda at the start of Children's Crusade?
Well, nobody is.
Nobody is.
So I'm going to do.
Should we? Yeah. So
I'll start with a quick recap of the first
recap of Children's
the
Crusade.
first issue I was going to go with.
Yep.
So what you have to remember about Children's Crusade is primarily a Young Avengers comic. So Wiccan is a major feature. He is maybe the main character.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Of this run. It is an amazing run, and I recommend everybody read it if you haven't already. So it starts with the Young Avengers are taking on this terrorist group. They're called the Sons of Serpent, whose goals are like every bad thing ever. Their goals are like racial and moral purity, and they are anti-homosexuality and anti-women, and like very much giving hate group.
So basically, the present day.
Yes. This comic is super relevant in that way.
This comic was what, 2011?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what that church group are called. Westboro Baptist. They're giving
Church.
Westboro Baptist Church.
So present day. No.
Then Hulkling is like not enjoying this, obviously, because he's Guy, and he gives one of the terrorists a kiss on the cheek, which makes the terrorist super not happy, and he blasts Hulkling in the chest, and this upsets Wiccan because that's his boyfriend.
He takes it super well.
He's really and basically the terrorist like bonks on the detonator, and you think that it's a bomb, but actually it's Wiccan who is the nuke, and he hovers in the air with immense power, and all of the terrorists collapse, and they go back to Avengers HQ, and everyone's like, what was that? The Avengers show up and they're like, hey, you maybe went a bit farther.
And then immediately, I think it's Carol basically draws comparisons to House of M.
Yep, because he says, like, the Avengers, like, we're kind of uncertain about your powers, so we kind of want you to stay here because we don't want another Scarlet Witch in our hands. And they give us a quick recap of Wanda's traumatic backstory about her losing the twins, going insane, killing Hawkeye, so on and so forth. They basically give us a House of M recap. If you want to hear more about House of M, we already have an episode on that, so I'm not going to recap the whole of House of M as we go. Wiccan is then like, oh, if I have all this power, does that mean that me and Speed are the Scarlet Witch's sons? And he doesn't really believe that she actually was responsible for those events, because he's like, hey, why would you guys hate on your former teammate? And he just storms out of the Avengers HQ. Very much not the Wiccan we saw on Agatha all along. The Young Avengers like chase after him, and they're like, hey, you should maybe listen to them. But he's like, nah, I'm going home. And of course, Captain America is already at his house and has spoken to his parents. And Wiccan is like, right, so you're going to force me to move in with you? You smell like beef. And he flies to the Avengers Tower. En route, he's kind of thinking maybe it wasn't Wanda that actually was the cause of House of M. Maybe it was Chthon. And Captain America is like, no, because Doctor Strange would have sensed it if she was actually possessed. And Hulkling's like, I'm coming with you because we're a guy and we need to be together. True boyfriendness. And they get to a 2-bed in the Avengers Tower, and it looks like a prison cell, and Wiccan's like, no, I need to redecorate. So he makes it not a prison cell anymore. And then Hulkling's like, just like let the Avengers test happen. Because I will stick by your side, even if you have no powers. You're still sexy to me. Because, you know, I still love you. And Wiccan's like, no, I should find the Scarlet Witch, because if the Scarlet Witch knew that her kids were alive, then maybe she could reverse everything and give the mutants back their powers and restore Cassie's father back to life. Because if Scarlet Witch was obviously able to bring back Wonder Man and Clint Barton, then she should be able to bring back Cassie's father. But then suddenly, dun dun dun, Magneto appears and he's like, I want to meet my grandsons, love them, stand them. So that's basically issue 1, unless you have any other things to add.
I don't have any kind of general
See, like I
thoughts
said, Wiccan is very much the main character of this.
This is 6 years post House of M, we're talking.
Mm-hmm.
So Wanda has just been retired at this point in the comics. So this is her first mention, probably.
Yeah, I mean, she obviously she did show up sort of, especially like she speaks to Beast, I think, at one point. But and she had that weird hookup with Clint.
Who hasn't had a weird hookup with Clint?
I mean, fair enough. It's nice to see Magneto back and acknowledging Wanda as his daughter. So Magneto snatches up Wiccan and Speed in a magnetic sphere, and he's like, I'm going to help you find your mom, because I obviously have been meaning to do that for ages. The Young Avengers like, no, don't take our friends. And he's like, they want to meet their mom, and these are the only links to my daughter. And Patriot's like, you are allying with a genocidal terrorist. And Magneto's like, I'm not a genocidal terrorist
anymore.
And he admits that he feels like what happened to Wanda is his fault and that he should take responsibility for correcting it. But then the Avengers show up and attack Magneto. And Wolverine is super mad that Magneto didn't heed his warning to not fuck with the Young Avengers. And Wiccan's like, hey, look, I just want to meet my mom. And the Avengers are like, no, you're not going to meet my mom. And so Wiccan is like, I'm going to teleport Magneto to Wundagore because he is that powerful. The dismayed Avengers are like, I don't know, how do we track them? And Wolverine is like, I want to find Wanda and put her out of her misery. Because killing Wanda is obviously the option.
That's basically Wolverine's entire arc through Children's Crusade is, I want to murder the Wanda.
Yeah, that is his literally entire ass arc. Patriot's super pressed at Wiccan for teleporting them to Wundagore, and Wiccan's like, I'm really sorry, I'll send you all home because I should probably just do this by myself. But Kate's like, we're a team. Wiccan then changes his clothes, obviously, so they can be a little bit less, we're the Young Avengers. And he doesn't, and the Young Avengers really aren't sure what will happen if the Scarlet Witch bring back their father. And then Magneto's like, you know how we could start the search? Let's go to Magda's grave. He's like, he explains like the origins of Pietro and Wanda as it stood at the time. Much better origin story, and their involvement in the Brotherhood of Mutants. And to narrow down the search, Wiccan, Magneto, and Speed form a Kumbaya circle, and Wiccan tries to sense where the Scarlet Witch is. And when he senses her, Speed does a full Pietro, runs to the nearby village, only to find Pietro, who's like, you killed me, so don't love that you're here, and leave my nephews alone.
His exact line is, the name is Quicksilver, and if you and your friends don't leave this place at once, my father won't be the only person I kill today.
It's very, very dark. And Wiccan's like, no, we're here of our own free will. But Quicksilver's like, no, you aren't. And then Speed's like, you know what? I'm just as cool as you, and challenges him to a race because that's the same personality as Pietro has.
Yeah.
And then other stuff happens. Quicksilver tries to kill Magneto, but then he starts throwing stakes at his father, but one of them impales a woman who looks just like Wanda, but it turns out it was just a Doom bot, implying that the Scarlet Witch that we maybe saw in other comics walking around this village was a Doom bot the whole time, and that the Scarlet Witch might be Doctor Doom's prisoner.
Yeah.
And that, I think, ends issue 2.
That is the end of issue 2.
Because I wrote this recap for myself and I did not put breaks, so I have to guess where the breaks are.
Yeah, so it ends with the panel where they say no one's been able to find the Scarlet Witch. She's the prisoner of Doom. The costumes that Wiccan transforms them into to make to disguise them. Did you pick up on the reference? They're dressed like the Van Trapps from Sound of Music. And there's a funny bit where Patriot is basically saying, I'm dressed like Ralph the Nazi boyfriend, and she's like, don't be ridiculous, Teddy's Rolf your Friedrich.
Literally, this issue was just Wolverine in the background going, no one mourns the wicked, good news. So Pietro at the beginning of the third comic, is really skeptical that it was Doctor Doom who placed the machine in Wundagore. But Magneto's like, actually, Doom as powerful magic could be the reason why we can't find Wanda.
It's a good kind of summary, because bearing in mind that this is 2011, like Avengers comic, you kind of got to give a good... imagine a lot of new readers are kind of coming in. This is very much aimed at a younger audience, and I imagine this will be the first younger readers kind of introduction for Doom, I'd imagine. Or
Doom being magic, because if you think about the Fantastic Four movies, they really don't touch on that element of Doom.
They really don't.
To be fair, before I read this, I had thought of Doom as a very magical person, because
this magic and science guy that's
just
a bit messed up.
Then Magneto's like, you know what? We should just go straight to the problem. He's like, me, Quicksilver, and the Young Avengers should go together to storm Castle Doom. And Pietro and Patriot are like, I don't want to go into a trap. And also, Doom isn't the most forgiving guy. He's not going to be super happy if we rock up. It's probably going to start a war. So Wiccan's like, I'll just go in myself. I'll just do some sneaking around. This is my James Bond arc, Mission Impossible. And he, and they're all like, maybe don't do that. But Wiccan waits till everyone falls asleep and then slips away and goes to Livonia by himself, obviously. Quicksilver tries to keep up with him. And then the Young Avengers are like, hey, you tried to leave without us. And Hulkling, being the protective boyfriend he is like, if you think you can sneak off with my BF, then you got another thing coming. He actually threatens to rip his legs off.
He does.
And then in a teaser for next week's episode, the Avengers bring Wonder Man to help in their search for Wanda.
Meanwhile, back at the ranch, Wonder Man has been recruited to find the Scarlet Witch. And
but
they give a little bit of
Wonder
background as to
why. Because they're lovers.
I mean, that's not the reason that the comic gave. The reason the comic gave is because his whole existence is because he is, as they quote, the last remaining vestige of the Scarlet Witch's magic on this plane. Because
they're in love.
And then Wolverine starts slagging off Wanda, and then Wonder Man decides to punch him through a wall.
Well, because Wolverine is like, Wonder Man's like, hey, why do you want me to find Wanda? And Wolverine's like, so I can kill her. And he's like, and she chose Vision over you. And Wonder Man's like,
yeah, basically punches him through a wall.
And then Captain's like, America's like, could you leave? To Wolverine, he's like, could you absolutely could you just go away? And then Wonder Man's like, I'm not helping you if you're just gonna blame Wanda for everything that has ever gone wrong. Because he's like, that's my queen, that's my skinny girl. Mm-hmm. Next week we will be talking Wanda Simon, because I've decided to just admit that I'm a Wanda Simon girly. Always have been, always will be. And I'm going to convince Nick that Wanda Simon is the ship next week. He looks so thrilled about that. And then in the middle of the night, Wiccan's like, I'm going to go to Doom's castle alone.
He writes a letter and goes to Latveria.
And he's like, I'm going to disguise myself as my mom. And tries to have himself taken to her room, but when he gets there, he gets jumped by Wanda, icon legend. And she's like, what are you doing here? And Wiccan's like speechless because that's your mom. And he's never met her before. She's like, what are you doing here? And he's like, and he's like, oh, I'm here to rescue you, instead of saying that he's her son. And Wanda's like, well, I'm getting married tomorrow. I'm betrothed to Dr. Doom, and I'm actually super happy about that.
Well, she says, I appreciate your concern, but I assure you I'm quite safe. In fact, I'm getting married tomorrow. Wiccan replies, you're what, to whom? And then the door opens and Doom's there and he goes, to me. And I think it's quite a dramatic final frame for that issue.
It is. Again, I haven't put in breaks properly, and I wrote notes, and then I, for some reason, did not put any breaks in this. So you're gonna have to tell me.
I said I have the issues in front of me instead of the singular issues in front of me.
I literally just wrote like some of it. I have to flesh out by myself. I wrote Wanda on floor.
Wanda on floor. Issue 4 kind of starts out quite cool. I mean, this is kind of very much firmly in the Wiccan is the main character of this.
Well, yeah.
Because he's basically saying he's fought the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, and the Avengers sometimes all at the same time, and now Doctor Doom is fighting me. And then and he says, Doctor Doom is about to kill me.
Yeah.
Which is quite amusing. Because Doom would.
Yeah.
And probably can.
Because he's like, you kidnapped Wanda. And Doom's like, no, she's here of her own free will. And then while holding up like a magical shield, he's like, he tries to tell Wanda who she is and who her sons are. But Doom is like, shut up, child. And knocks him unconscious. Wanda's like, he's like, let's just get married and then we'll figure everything else out later. He's like, the show must go on. We've got the 4 weddings camera crew outside. Like, let's go. Outside the castle, the Young Avengers, Magneto and Quicksilver are trying to think of a way in. And then the answer turned out to be everybody else arriving. The Avengers are there with Wonder Man.
Well, correction, Wonder Man is going and the Avengers are basically stalking Wonder Man.
Yeah. My Shayla. And then Doom enacts a healing spell on Wiccan because he's like, maybe it was wrong to blast a child.
Gives a little bit of backstory.
He's like, oh, Wanda's repressing her memory and her powers. He's like, oh, she came to me for the people of her village and we fell in love. He's like, you can stay here and the Avengers won't be able to touch you, or you can be my prisoner. He adds that his spells relieve Wiccan of his powers. He's like, no bother. You don't have any powers anymore. Yay!
That's quite funny.
Magneto's like, shut up. And like makes all the aircrafts tumble about in the air, and the Young Avengers and Quicksilver storm the castle, and then the Avengers are like, no, you don't. Wiccan's like, right, I need to get my powers back. Meanwhile, Wanda has put on her wedding dress and she comes in his room and she's like, everything was perfect until you showed up and made me want to know who I was. Wiccan's like, I'll tell you as long as you let me out of here because I don't have any powers anymore. He explains to her like the full backstory about how she was married to Vision, thought she had twins until their souls were claimed by Mephisto, resulting in her mental breakdown, thus leading to the formation of the Young Avengers. But before he can get to the part that like him and Speed are twins, Wiccan opens the door and the Avengers and Doom and the Young Avengers are all fighting. And Wolverine, of course, it's on site, is immediately beefing with Wanda. But the Iron Lad is like, the future actually depends on Wiccan's survival.
Yeah, so basically Wolverine jumps Wanda, basically is trying to take her down and kill her because of the whole genocide thing, which is, I guess, a perfectly reasonable explanation for Wolverine being mad.
Guess.
And then literally Iron Lad comes out of nowhere and is just like, you know, I'm back. Guys, I'm back.
It's me. Hi everyone. Don't worry, I'm back and I'm gonna make it everyone's problem. I'm gonna save everyone. It's fun to see this many characters kind of together. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's always fun to see the Avengers
the panels with the all kind of fighting basically across a double page spread. I do love seeing those kind of panels because there's just so much going on.
I just also love to see the magnet. I wish Polaris was here so the magnet family could be complete, because I love to see the magnets hanging out together. Basically, the battle keeps on going, but Iron Lad is like, we gotta get out of here. He tells the Avengers that he's found Wiccan and the Scarlet Witch, and Speed's like, I've actually been looking everywhere. Doctor Doom is again attempting to kill a child, thinking that he contacted the Avengers and wants to kidnap Wanda, and Wanda's like, he didn't do any of that, I just want to know who I am. And she's like, why are you so afraid of me finding out the truth? Magneto's like, right, it's on site, and grabs Doom, and Wanda and Wiccan are like, we gotta go. And they meet up with the Young Avengers just as everybody is about to attack them. Iron Lad takes his friend into the time stream. This is where it starts to get a little bit complicated. So be seated. Doom is very afraid that Wanda going into the time stream could affect the past or future. But in the time stream, the Jack of Hearts is there, who is supposed to be dead, but he's back.
So they go back to the day basically where everything goes to shit at the Avengers Mansion at the start of House Avengers Disassembled.
Mm-hmm.
And it's literally moments before Cassie's dad, aka Ant-Man, gets blown up, and they kind of rescue Ant-Man. They pull him out of the time stream.
There's this whole explanation for how that won't create a paradox.
Yeah, just before the Jack of Hearts blows up again.
And basically, you have to remember there's also a young Vision on this team.
Yes.
And so he has to explain that he's in the past he's still married to the Scarlet Witch, which isn't entirely true in terms of where I think we were in the comics there, but that's where they were going with. And so they decide to try and save Ant-Man.
Yep.
And unfortunately, an undead Jack of Hearts arrives, and
blows up again.
Yep. And then the Young Avengers then return to the present.
Yeah, so they basically, it's this flash of white. They've been rescued. Iron Lad and Wiccan are basically like, we didn't rescue each other. Like, what's going on? They return back to the present. They're trying to figure out what's going on, and basically the last panel is, you're right, Billy, I am the Scarlet Witch and I remember everything.
Yeah, basically she remembers who she is and looks iconic while doing it. She's very much in her old comic book costume in this
panel, yeah.
Well, in the whole
yeah.
They don't, she had a different costume kind of at the time, but they're very much going with her absolute classic look.
Am I right in thinking the way her magic is drawn in this is that's basically how it's drawn in current issues as well?
Yeah, the hex circles are they
is this new for 2011 or
no this had been historic.
Okay. I don't know how they make her visualize her magic, so
it's changed, but this is very classic. These rings, the hex bolts as they're called,
because they use this very much in the new series, don't they?
The hex bolts do look like that currently. Okay. So then we go on to the next issue, where Wanda remembers her life and has regained her powers. She then conjures up Kree ships and Ultron robots, not beating the chaos magic allegations here. And she begins to explain that she blamed the Avengers for the death of her sons. So she started the events of Avengers Disassembled to send their sins back on them. Hawkeye, Jessica Jones, and Beast then turn and are scared that history is going to start repeating itself. And then Jones comments that the Young Avengers found Wanda when no one else could. And then the Beast admits that, this is a reference, that he'd found Wanda first and had tea with her. And then Hawkeye's like, yeah, I slept with her. You see all the references. And then everyone is like, oh my god, Scott Lang is here. And Wiccan's like, oh, the Wanda that you found before was actually a Doom bot. So Clint is like, oh, I was very much giving sex with a toaster. And then everyone noticed that Wanda has lined up the Kree ships and Ultrons to attack her. They intervene and get through to Wanda, and they tell her that Vision is back and that he and Speed are the reincarnations of her sons. And Wanda apologizes for not recognizing him and like stops, and he gives her a hug, but Tommy is a little bit hesitant to be her biffle because she did cause M-Day and murder all her friends. Hawkeye calls the other Avengers and she's like, oh, Wanda remembers who she is. And Pietro's a bit nervy about talking to his sister. But when Iron Man hears about Scott, he orders Hawkeye to make sure that no one leaves the grounds of the Avengers mansion. Tommy's really worried that when the Avengers arrived, they're going to kill Wanda to prevent her from any more damage. And that Hawkeye is like, oh no, that's not the way of the Avengers. When I'm talking about Hawkeye, by the way, I'm talking about Kate Bishop, Hawkeye. Just realized I didn't make that distinction. Wiccan's like, actually, Wolverine wants to murder her. But Beast is like, oh, but if Wanda depowered the world's mutants, then she could undo it, but only for volunteers. Jones calls in a X Factor, so we're bringing in another team now. X Factor are coming, so they could locate all the former mutants who've been in contact with them. That
is Shatterstar, Jamie Madrox, aka Multiple Man, Strong Guy, and Richter. That's the X Factor at this point.
But they're super reluctant to help. Because the last bit of help Quicksilver tried to do, this was when Pietro tried to give back everyone's powers with Terrigen crystals. They couldn't take the strain and exploded. The X Factor turns to leave, but Wanda is like, no, please, I only want to reverse what I've done. But she's told by, I didn't write who.
Richter turns around and is like, I'll do it.
Yeah. And, she's like, Madrox is like, oh, once everyone hears that you're alive, they're going to try and kill you.
Yeah.
And so Richter's like, we can try. Wanda succeeds in giving Richter his powers back, and the entire building starts to shake. She's congratulated for managing to give him his powers back, but he's like, there's a lot more people to get through, babe. And then the X-Men arrive. And so Wanda's like, oh, better go and help with that. Emma Frost is here, who wanted to kill Wanda ages ago.
So this is Rogue, Colossus, Cyclops, Storm, Emma Frost, Iceman, and Gambit.
This was the beginning of such beef between Rogue and Scarlet Witch. We'll do the Uncanny Avengers run at some point where the beef was so intense between Rogue and Wanda. It was giving homoerotic tension. It was giving everything that it needed to give, to be honest. So in this next issue, this is one of my favorite issues. The cover absolutely is everything to me. It's Doom and Wanda very much giving power couple with all the Avengers and X-Men and Young Avengers like at their feet, basically on fire.
Yeah, they're dead. I think that's the vibe they're giving.
I loved it. I'm going to be real with you. I would love to own this individual comic cover. It's one of my faves.
What do you mean by own it? Do you not own that single issue already?
I have the compilation.
Not the single
but
issues?
I don't have this. Yeah, I don't have the single issues. They're really expensive because it's such an iconic run for the. So basically, it's the start of a battle royale here because all the different teams.
So this is the X-Men, the Avengers, the Young Avengers, and Doom.
Yeah, they all want to get a piece of that Wanda cake and murder.
What flavour do you think Wanda cake is?
Red velvet, probably.
Yeah, that's a good shout.
They all, and obviously Wolverine and the X-Men are kind of out for blood. And the Avengers are like, no, don't kill her. She was really nice. But it's an all-out war, basically, at this point.
Basically, yeah. Cyclops is basically saying the X-Men will hold her accountable for her crimes or will burn the witch where she stands.
Yep.
He's not happy.
You can do the recap of this one.
You want me to do the recap of this one?
You have a go.
Sure.
You take it more seriously than me.
So basically the X-Men are arguing with Magneto and X-Factor and the Avengers. There's this kind of big debate going on, and then it turns into basically a fist fight where Cyclops blasts Magneto. Spider-Man says, I have to be honest, I'm not a big fan of the superheroes fighting each other. He's got a point. It never really ends well.
No, it's giving Civil War Wonder Edition.
Yeah, so they're all fighting, and Emma Frost, does her thing to Wiccan and Speed to try and get them to show them Wanda. They're all still fighting, and Wanda just basically just goes, enough.
Yeah,
puts everyone to sleep.
She's like, thank you for that, guys.
Sends everyone.
Her cloak is so gorgeous in that panel. I love these panels here.
And then she transports herself and the Young Avengers back to Latveria, back to Doom, back to Castle Doom. And they're kind of panicking because they're like, Scarlet Witch just took out the Avengers and has brought us back to the arms of Doctor Doom. That doesn't really look good.
But she's like, you guys, it's all gonna be fine.
It's fine, guys. Don't worry about it. And they're basically saying, you murdered your husband and your friends.
So that's a lot of character for you.
Nearly wiped out an entire series, and and she goes, no, it wasn't Victor, it was me. There are some things I still can't remember. Doom says, and your memory has returned. And she basically just goes into a whole thing about how her and Doom work together to kind of, he says like Wanda's a nexus being, which is a living focal point for Earth's mystical energies. So they want to kind of combine these magics to help her kind of unleash her power, basically make her more powerful. And that's basically...
It's basically implied through this issue that before the events of House of M and Avengers Disassembled, she had teamed up with Doom already to try to harness this thing called the Life Force.
Yes.
And it's implied that it somehow was too powerful for her. This was kind of trying to explain
it away, basically, by making Wanda not seem as much as a bad person.
It was an attempt at a retcon, is that like the Life Force like overwhelmed her and forced her to do what had happened in House of M, essentially, is what they're implying. This was very much an attempt by the writers to redeem Wanda. And she's like, right, if I can harness the Life Force now, then I will be able to undo all the bad that I did.
Yeah.
Essentially is what happens.
So her, Wiccan, and Doom basically kind of join together to kind of make the Life Force again. And bring it all kind of together. The power kind of explodes. They're all kind of wondering what's going on. They're all kind of confused. Wanda looks a bit hurt. And then all of a sudden, Doom's mask falls to the floor, and it's Victor, and he's...
sexy. He's bringing sexy back. Basically, he's like, the Life Force is still too powerful for Wanda, and it like explodes out of her, and it turns out that Victor wanted the Life Force all along.
Victor is here, and I'm going to take care of everything. He says in a super reassuring and not at all foreboding tone.
Daddy's home.
His cloak is quite white and gold.
Yeah, it's
he's
giving...
got a very handsome looking face that's not scarred in any way.
Yeah, basically he's like, I'm the dad. Who's the daddy? I'm the daddy now. And that is the end of that issue.
That's the end of that issue.
So we pick up with Victor back rather than Doctor Doom, and he's like, look, I always wanted to help. I love being helpful. That's always been my thing. This
isn't sus at all.
No,
this is not sus.
He's like, look, Wanda, it's fine. We'll get married still love you, girl. But like, I'm perfect now. I'm so sexy. That's what's up. And Wanda's like, Doom, the Life Force is too powerful for anyone. She's like, stop, this isn't you. Because she's genuinely into him.
Yeah, she asks, he asks her, will you marry me? She says, yes, if you rid yourself of this power.
Yeah, she's like, I liked you behind the mask.
And then she says, Victor, you're dealing with forces you cannot control. And then he says, no, I am dealing with forces you could not control. You've made your choice. And then he basically
sends them all
away. Back to the Avengers Mansion.
And they're like, guys, unfortunately, Victor has the life force now.
Yeah.
And
Emma Frost, basically puts Wanda under. They basically explain to everybody about what's going on with Doom. And they're kind of all realizing that, if Doom has that power, they're all dead.
Yeah, they're all like, oops, they're like, that isn't very good. Literally, if Wanda had a hater team, it would be Emma Frost and Wolverine. They are always on the hate, drinking the Wanda haterade.
Yeah.
Which is a shame, because Wanda and Emma could come together to maximize their joint slay. Yeah. For sure. And they're all like, what do we do? Doom has this magic. And then Wiccan starts being the main character again.
It basically kind of gives his monologue about kind of making it the point that, guys, you shouldn't really pretend that it should never have happened. But like, you got to look at the whole picture here. Wanda is trying to save lives and is trying to do the right thing and be a hero. And they're like, okay, almost. They look like they're agreeing, and then Doom shows up.
Obviously, he's still looking very sus in terms of, he's like, I can do everything,
including raise the dead.
Yep.
Which implied to be Nightcrawler,
Phoenix,
Jean Grey, Phoenix, the Wasp, and I can't really work out the others.
Yeah, it was very much a kind of this comic is very much a reset for the same way that House of M was a disruptor. I think this comic was very much attempted to be a bomb over a lot of what had happened in the Marvel comics that was unpopular.
Yeah, there's a bit of a foreshadowing going on, because at some point he does say even the power of the Beyonder was nothing compared to that of the Life Force.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of a foreshadowing to later events, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And then they're basically, will you accept my offer of, ruling under me, basically?
Doom is once again trying to be in charge, and everyone's like, no, we don't want you to be in charge, because bad things happen when you're in charge. Wanda's back up. She's up, and they attack Doom,
who's decided to go full-on Super Saiyan Godzilla size.
But the life force is once again overwhelming Doom, and he like blows up. Because it's the power is too much for him, as implied.
He looks like he kills Ant-Man, and Cassie's not happy with that. She grows to a massive size and knocks him the fuck out. And then he says, "I'm gonna lose it." Blasts her away. Wanda and Wiccan kind of join together, and basically try and take down Victor.
Yeah, they try and remove the life force from him, and he's like, no, don't. I like it. Let me have it. And it's implied that it was also too much for him, that he wouldn't have been able to handle it in the long term, is kind of the implication from the comics themselves.
He basically goes out just saying, by opening the portal, you've only given me more power, more illumination, more white light flooding my soul, making my mind one with the creators, burning away my sins, my imperfections. I will not be corrupted. I am not weak like you. He's trying to go out swinging.
And then Wanda's like, no, let me help you. Because she's like, I love you. And he's like, no, I never loved you, actually. Even though it's implied that they've been in contact since before the events of House of M. This is a really long-ass relationship they've had. He's like, no, that was all fake. All of it. Including, all the time you lived at my house.
He says, you think you were powerful enough to destroy the Avengers and rid the world of its mutants? That was me. That was Doom.
Which, we've since kind of not accepted that as canon. In terms of comics, most of the comics just say that Doom was having a bad day.
Yeah. It kind of ends with everyone kind of crowding around Cassie, who's not looking great.
Yeah, after being blasted by Doom. Which leads us to the very last issue of Children's Crusade, which is kind of it's wrapping up all these plot lines again, because we've got so many of these teams all together. So Scott is holding Cassie as she is dying, essentially. And literally everybody in the entire world is watching this happen.
Yeah.
Don't any of you have healing powers? Do something.
Yeah. I mean, and Ironland is getting really, really mad. Has a fight with everybody. And they're kind of pointing out that, Ironlad, you need to calm down, because remember who you actually are.
You're Kang.
You are Kang. And you are going down that road. And he basically gets super mad and just says, you know what?
He said peace. He leaves.
He leaves.
Everyone's like, no, don't. He's like, no, I'm gonna. And then he's destroyed
Vision.
the Vision, and Wanda's holding the Vision's helmet, like, oh no, again, because I can't have a love interest that doesn't just die on me.
Yeah.
And then the X-Men are like, hi, we're here again.
Yeah.
It's again, there's so many teams here that it's a bit of a complicated last issue. So the X-Men are like, what are we gonna do about all the dying mutants?
Yeah, they're gonna try and sort something out, I think, with that.
And then Wanda and Captain America have this chat where he's like, you always have a home with the Avengers. It's a shame, again, this isn't Carol. It really doesn't touch on the Wanda Carol is an underrated friendship that doesn't get the time that it deserves. And Wanda's like, no, I can't be an Avenger because I smell like beef. And then Simon, my Shayla, comes along and is like, Wanda, you could be with me. I love you. And she's like, no, I have to figure this out. I can't, for some reason, I can't be around my friends and family. That's a bad idea. Because then Pietro and the Magnet family are like, you could be magnets with us. And she's like, no, I'm also not going to do that for whatever. It's such a, again, I think this is a bit of an out of character move because all Wanda has ever craved is a family, and her love interest and her family are like, let's all be together. And she's like, no. And then
I think it's basically an attempt at the writer's part here to basically to make the point that maybe she just always has been defined by the teams that are around her and by the people that are around her, never been defined by her being herself, the Scarlet Witch. I think the line where she says, I've only ever been Pietro's twin, Magneto's daughter, the Vision's wife. It's time for me to take responsibility for myself. And I think that's kind of a nice idea to kind of lead it into like Scarlet Witch being the Scarlet Witch.
I think it would have been if she'd had her own run next, but she didn't.
She didn't.
So it didn't have the impact because she just ended up on the Unity Squad. She then hugs her kids and she's like, I love you guys, but like I'm outie. And then it finishes with the Young Avengers kind of sitting together and
breaking up.
Yeah,
really.
being like, we can't be a team anymore because actually everything sucks now.
Yeah, Iron Lad is dead. The Iron Lad is gone. Vision's dead. Cassie's gone.
I can't remember if she's dead or if she's like just like
in an ICU or something. Billy gets super depressed. Watches all the events on basically out the window of the kind of skyscraper. Hulkling's trying to get him to be okay.
They kiss.
They have a really nice kiss, and then Carol shows up and it's basically like, guys, we need you and Hulkling to come along. Cap shows up, Iron Man shows up.
It's basically the Young Avengers actually being taken seriously as a team because they had not been kind of before. Now it's the Avengers acknowledging that the Young Avengers have a purpose and
now part of the Avengers.
Yeah. And that's kind of where
it ends.
It ends. So as much as it's a Young Avengers story, it is packed with other people. What are your thoughts on the run before I get into mine?
I think it's a very we've spoken quite positively about this off mic, haven't we?
Yeah, I love it.
We do kind of really love this, and I think it really gives Wanda really strong characters to kind of play up against. I think that's probably the biggest comparison to House of M, where she's just very much seen as
She's very much just a malevolent force kind of in the background.
Where everyone is doing something for Wanda or against Wanda in that, whereas this, where she's very much part of the action.
I love the writing of pretty much everybody. I am not a huge Young Avengers stan, so I cannot speak to the Young Avengers. I think that Billy is very well defined in this. Poor Tommy is always the second brother in kind of all ways. What I really like about it is this use of Doom. I think it's a really interesting and complicated relationship to have set up. I enjoy the way Steve, as in Captain America, is characterized in this very much like he'll always stick by Wanda. I think Wolverine wanting to kill her on sight is so in character.
Funny, yeah.
I think that everybody's written very in character for the most part in this run. There is a lot of characters. I feel like it almost could have done with 12 issues rather than 9 to maybe wrap up everything that was going on here. But it's so ambitious. I think the Life Force is an interesting introduction, and we do see that come back up for Wanda. Again, I think it's a very interesting force to have been introduced. I don't think it's the best explanation for House of M, but it's definitely an explanation for House of M that does take some of the responsibility off of Wanda to enable her character to move forward. she would still be burdened by House of M basically until Trial of Magneto, where like we finally were like, okay, we can put House of M to bed. It does set up the Uncanny Avengers run and the Avengers X-Men Unity Squad. This very much gives a good introduction to that as well. I think it was a great reset in the way that I didn't like House of M as a disruptor. I like this reset very much. I love the artwork. I think it's very interesting. I liked the return of Wanda's classic costume in some ways. I think the whole moving through the time, bringing Ant-Man back is so random, but if they were going to undo one thing that happened in
I think it is implied that they killed Cassie's dead, so they have to get rid of one person to kill off.
Yeah, I just really like it. I think that it is such an interesting introduction to the Young Avengers as very serious characters. And I really like the Wanda Doom plotline. I would love to see some issues where they were just having like slice of life, because she lived with him for years. We're talking like a long time. And I really think it's implied that Doom probably did care for her in some way, because there's no reason you would let someone live in your house for like months or propose. There was like no need for him to propose.
I mean, the thing with Doom though, he's always just craving more power, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe like that's kind of the writer's thing. It's just like, it makes sense for him to be with Wanda because he sees her as a tool to get more power.
Obviously, the relationship they go on to have is really antagonistic. We saw that in Darkhold, which I think is a mischaracterization. And they very much decided that Doom was to blame for House of M in that particular run. Whereas I severely doubt Doom was pulling the strings the whole time. I think it takes a lot of agency away from Wanda. As much as I would love to be Team Wanda was possessed during House of M, I don't think Doom was maybe the right strings to be pulling. I guess he is evil enough to do it. I just don't think that. I don't understand how it's implied that he had control over her. But I love this run. I would love to see a real adaptation of this, and I think that's maybe where we're heading towards with Avengers Doomsday. Maybe.
It would be an adaptation. It wouldn't be like a strict following the plot.
I think if they had brought out the Children's Crusade film, the Young Avengers film they were planning to, we'd have moved towards it much more.
Yeah.
But a lot of the key characters haven't had any of the plots that would matter for Children's Crusade. I am interested to see what from this run will be brought in. Because I just do think that with the characters we currently have introduced, there will be some elements. But yeah, I really love it. It's one of my favorite comic runs. I've read it a bunch of times. I always forget a lot about the X-Men being in this. I think the issues I really enjoy the most are the ones with Wiccan in the castle. I love seeing the Magnet family pre-retcon. Yeah. At some point we'll have to do an episode on the retcon and I'll cry because I hate it so deeply. But I think this is such a smash hit, such a fun comic, and such a good move from having just done House of M. Especially with everyone being like, you can't just blame Wanda for everything that's ever gone wrong with the Avengers. The X-Men also, sometimes I do want to be like, you at least all of you have had a genocidal plotline at some point. Like, y'all have a history of doing that.
What, the X-Men?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Emma in the forefront as if she wasn't a villain for like 20 years. Yeah, do you have any final thoughts?
I'm coming from this as, I'm not the reader that I was. Children's Crusade was after when I stopped reading.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for me it's a really really good I think event to kind of get your teeth stuck into.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a great if you're looking for an entry comic that portrays Wanda in a positive light. This one's a good one to start with because you've got a whole 9 issues to get through.
She's basically got relationships with everybody, and I think the writing is very, very good in that it shows you it's very detailed and it shows you what each of those relationships look like. even if they are as basic as Wolverine's.
Yeah, just straight hatred.
And I always when I look at these Avengers comics and stuff, I always look for seeing what Spidey / Peter Parker is doing, because what he's saying, because it shows to me how much detail they're able to kind of show. If they're able to nail Peter Parker's quips, then they've really nailed the detail for everybody else, and in terms of characters that I don't know much of. So it's a good.
Yeah, I would say this has recaps of like lots of major plot lines. So if you're looking for a place to come in that isn't like Avengers Assemble or House of M, and you want to read the current Scarlet Witch runs, reading this and then Darkhold and then going into current Scarlet Witch run, Trial of Magneto too. They're all good ones to just read in succession. You don't have to read a lot of individual issues to understand.
What is next in terms of the runs?
Well, next, what are we doing next week?
No, I don't mean what we are doing next week. I mean, what
there are some individual runs that she appears in, but her next major storyline was Uncanny Avengers with the Unity Squad of the Avengers and X-Men and her iconic beef with Rogue.
Will be that the comic series we're going to do next, or is that like a long-ass series?
It's a long-ass series. It's very long, and she's like, I don't know which one we're going to focus on next. We might jump back and do her first ever solo run. Yeah. Talk about but next week, what we will instead be doing is we're going to be talking Scarlet Witch Wonder Man. A lot of you guys, if you've only seen MCU or even some of the cartoons, are not going to know that one of her most significant love interests of all time is Simon Williams, aka Wonder Man, aka my Shayla, who deserves the world but gets very bad. A lot of that it's going to be a 2-episode event. The first one, we'll be talking about Simon in context of his own storylines, doing a bit of a recap on who he is, since we've got Wonder Man coming out this year. And then we'll talk about his relationship to Wanda. They have such a long history that this is going to be a 2-part series on him and her, and why Wanda Simon is the ship, and why you should ship him. And it's my stand bias. So,
okay.
I'm going to convince Nick to become a Wanda Simon girly.
Okay.
So yeah, thank you for tuning in with us. We'll be back next week with more news, and obviously a Wanda Simon recap. If you cannot wait to hear more from me, you can find me over on TikTok at Into the Wonderverse. You can find me on Instagram at The Wonderverse. You can find me on Twitter, The Wonderverse. You can find me on Blue Sky at The Wonderverse, or Threads at The Wonderverse.
You can find me on Blue Sky at Nick S. Chandler. My website is supertomavision.com, and my other podcast is Kino Tomet.
Thank you ever so much to Lily for our gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous podcast art. Thank you to Melody Ray Griffiths for the music. And until we see you next time, stay magical.